Hey everybody, welcome to this month's deep dive. I'm Brooklyn and this is
I'm David.
David, yes. And this month we are going to be talking about some things that are coming up in the month of June in Grow Students Volume 4. Cannot wait. We've got a 4-week teaching series from the Gospels and the Prophets on the topic of justice. I had an incredible time just collaborating on this series. I got to write this one together with David. So we get to talk about something we wrote, which is fun.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, I know. I'm pumped too. Usually we're talking about things other people wrote, but this is something that we really got in the gritty parts of it. So we get to do that. And then we're also going to be talking about a summer event by Alex Street called the Golden Glow Awards. And who doesn't need an awesome award show? I'm so excited to dig into that. So, but before we start, David, what is going on? How are you? How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, we had some pretty big news happen yesterday, didn't we?
Did we? What is happening? Yeah, we did.
Today, we're at the time of this recording, it's Tuesday. We just launched Volume 5 yesterday. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep everything in check. Volume 5. So it's just a wild time and stuff you can use, but everything's good here. I'm from Dallas, Texas. It's been rainy the past couple of days here in Dallas, but everything's been good. We launched 5 yesterday. We're working on 6. We're talking about Volume 4, so we're just kind of in a wild, strange place of talking with all our volumes and that sort of thing. But definitely,
I know I'm starting to have a little bit of grow brain, if that is a thing, just because we're kind of constantly living in the future and always dipping back into the past and trying to figure out what's happening right now too. So, hey, but we all know, if you didn't hear already, Volume 5 is amazing. There are so many new features. We have volunteer devotionals now. We have a different way of delivering hacks. We have something called hubs. We've got
the YouVersion Devos too. Yeah.
YouVersion Devos. We have a whole new curriculum. So we not only do we have Grow Kids, Grow Students, but now we have Grow Adult Groups. We don't want to grow adults, but grow groups for adults. There we go.
Yes.
So we do want to grow everyone spiritually. Everybody wants to grow spiritually. So that's what we're doing. But until all of that rolls out, or until you start all of that, you're probably over here just figuring out Volume 4. And there's so many amazing things to explore in it.
Definitely.
That's why we're here, to kind of go ahead and unpack a few of the details. And don't forget to share what you're learning when you're doing these series and events, because there are a whole bunch of you helping each other figure it out as you go. And there might even be someone in the future who Googles this group and looks for help and sees your precious little comments about what worked and what worked even better. So cool. Well, let's dive in then. Are you ready? Let me share my screen.
I'm ready. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We're gonna go. Oh, can you make me a host?
Yeah, of course.
Yay. Okay. So while he's doing that, I'm gonna be pulling up the series called Back to the Future. I don't think I said the series title.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay.
The future.
It might be a little telling of my age, the title of this series. I don't know. Maybe it's still a classic movie, right?
It is a classic. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
What do you think about this beautiful graphic? I love it.
It's so cool. I love how they incorporate the lightning from the movie. And then the word future looks super cool. It looks like something from Tron. I love it.
Yes. It's so rad. We have nothing to do with this. This is all the genius of other people, but I love this look. I hope that it helps get you excited for summer storms and rain and adventures and who knows what else. So what do you want us to know about this series?
Yeah, so just a brief overview. Like Brooklyn said, this is a series about that goes through the Gospels and the Prophets. And so I did just want to mention that, straight off the bat. I think it's so cool how we have paired up scripture passages from the Gospels and then aligned those with the Prophets and just kind of how they connect with each other. So it's really cool. And that's kind of how the whole Back to the Future theme is kind of based out of, because we hear Jesus talking and then he references the prophets that he's talking. And so it's he's kind of doing this whole Back to the Future thing and calling things back into reality of his time. And then we even push it to the reality of what students are going through in our time today currently. So this is just a great series to talk about in the summer. And so just overall, just connecting the two is awesome. We're looking at Isaiah, Amos, Jeremiah, We're doing Matthew and Luke and some John as well. So yeah, just a good overall series with some gospel texts and also some prophet texts as well. So that's kind of my basic overview of what I've seen in the Bible passages. We have some great activities that we'll go through. This room design, it looks very similar to like our graphic, which is cool. So yeah.
Yeah, what's going on there? What did we recommend for room design?
Yeah, so this one is, let's see, we've got, this is kind of graphic. So we have like LED tape that you can use to make it kind of stick out. And I will talk about this arrow thing that kind of looks a little random, but I'll talk about that in the series as we talk about it, because it's a special thing. So I won't say what it is just yet, but we'll get to it in a second. But it's a great room design. You can kind of decorate as you need to for your space. So yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of time travel in general. I mean, all of us wish we had a time machine, but I do love the idea of kind of time traveling back to the prophets and forward to what Jesus said, and then into the present with like what we're doing now. So that's kind of where the time travel theme comes, that thread just back and forth between the prophetic words and then the words of Jesus. And you'll even see some of those themes coming out in some of these songs and some of the other little details that everyone pulled together to make this series great. So yeah. Oh, something I love about this series, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, David, but are all the movie clips from the great classics, right?
No, I saw that. There's a lot of movie clips in here. I'll talk about a few, but yeah, if you guys, when you guys are scrolling through this, you'll see like all the different clips that you will need to pull from. But yeah, I'll talk about a few of them. But yeah, so yeah, there's some really cool movie clips that we'll get to use. Look at these hacks we have here for you guys. So if you're more specifically for like a middle school students or high school students, you're teaching specifically for either of those groups, we've got some hacks for you to like kind of modify your lesson a little bit so that you can cater and teach them a little bit better, and they can understand and receive the message that you are teaching a little bit more clearly, depending on their age and their development. So we have those there for you, and they're fantastic. So,
great.
Yeah.
All right. So what else do you want to talk about? I'm kind of just scrolling through.
Yeah. So I think after the hacks, I think we're going to get pretty close to the actual series. So, we also do special needs hacks as well. So those are great. Hey, look.
There's us. Hi, that's us. That is us. Fun fact about David and I went to seminary for a minute, and his dad was our professor and mentor, and he was just hanging out as a middle schooler. So now we get to work together.
I know. It's wild, and it comes full circle because he was also my professor in seminary as well.
Guess what? Oh no, I can't say. It's a secret. Never mind. There's another level of this like little melodrama that's going on. The Magallanes Lindsay connection has another level, but we'll have to announce it later.
That sounds good.
Okay, yeah. So here we are, week one.
Week one. Yes. You ready? Let's dive into it. So week one, the big idea is Jesus's mission frees people. So we start off with the week, and I want to highlight a module. It is the activity, the flashback word association. So if you want to scroll back to that one, it's right there. I think this will be a really cool one to start off with as you teach this sermon and a specific lesson. It's just really fun because you could get some really cool student interaction with this one. So this one is like you say, when I say blank, you say this. So the whole point of this is like, for example, if you do Mario Kart, you'll say, when I say Mario, you say, and you have your students kind of come up with something that they kind of fill in that blanks. And so you can kind of see whether they're tracking with you or whether they're not. And the whole thing is like, we've chosen kind of more old school trends. So you'll see Mario Kart, Air Jordans, flip phones, silly bands, Backstreet Boys. These are kind of very like 90s things that are kind of like old school to your students, your Gen Z generation group right now. So it'd be interesting to see like when you say Mario, what will they say? Or when you say Backstreet, what will they say? And so then you actually get to like have them guess or not if it's cool or if it's still cool or not to their generation, to the Gen Z generation. So that's a really cool, fun way to just to start things off. I mean, if you're still meeting on Zoom, you can still kind of possibly do some stuff like this. Like if you're doing interaction on Zoom, you can say, when I type this, what do you guys think of? And they can kind of respond in the chat if you guys are still doing Zoom stuff like that. So that's a cool one that I wanted to point out. We got some really great questions there, some stories there for you guys to talk about as well. And then, yeah, some images about the church. But I really want to go into like the Bible passage here. So this one is, so here's where you're really going to get to see some of our like past and present Jesus realities and kind of connections. And so this one is when Jesus is opening up the scroll and he's reading about himself and his mission and what he's called to do and what God has kind of led him to do here on earth. And so he's opening this up in Luke, and then we scroll down and you get to see the Isaiah passage. So Brooklyn, if you want to scroll just a little down, I think you'll get to see, it's not the Isaiah. Oh yeah, it is Isaiah right there. And so yeah, you get to actually kind of get to read what Jesus was quoting. So I think it's just so cool for students to see, like, as Jesus was reading, what does he quote from, and that sort of thing. And so, but Brooklyn, before you get too far, go back up right in between the two scriptures. Here's what I was talking about with the random arrow in our room design, the past and future timeline. So this is super cool. Like I said, that you can incorporate this into your room design where you get to create this arrow. We talk about like making this at least 6 feet long, and you can use chloroplast or foam core or even foam insulation panels. And you can actually paint them or either put them in fabric or something like that. But essentially this arrow is going to be a timeline. And so you can kind of like figure out when Isaiah was approximately prophesizing, or when he was approximately talking about these sort of things. And then you can put Jesus on that timeline as well. So then you can actually visually be a representation for your students of like, okay, we're talking Old Testament here, we're talking New Testament over here, and that's what you need to know, like kind of where you're talking. Because, you know, going back and forth from Old Testament to New Testament could be a little jarring for students, but if you have this timeline, I think it's a great representation of like, okay, we're in here at this time, and then we're going to go back over here. And so we, to also limit the kind of back and forth, it's usually just one passage from the New Testament and one passage from the Old Testament. So you're not going like back and forth multiple times. It's just like one time in each sermon. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on the timeline or any thoughts on the scriptures, on these scriptures specifically, or anything like that?
No, I love this. I love the arrow, just the like the, I don't know, for kinesthetic learners, for people who just need a visual or hands-on thing. I mean, you can even get students to be able to like move the arrow. Like if we're gonna go take a look back, if we're gonna make it look forward, you could flip it around.
Yeah.
I just really love the symbolism. So yeah, it's really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so then we'll do that. You can teach through that. We have a little bit of a talk section right there, kind of explaining like, you know, what the Jesus mission was, just right there in the now what section. Yeah, so then we kind of switch it from like what Jesus was doing to what we're doing. And so I really love this reflection right here. This, it's called the Justice Jump. And it's really, so like what we were talking about. So we talked about what Jesus talked about where he was getting it from the Old Testament. And now it's like, okay, what are we going to do about it now? How does this affect our current reality and our current age with our students? And so this is asking students for, if they would go back in time and they found out a solution to a problem that was happening now, what would they pick? And so is it kids, is it people having safe water to drink globally? Is it all kids being able to go to school? And just all these different things, injustices that are going on now. And so this is, I think, a real cool way to see like what your students might be passionate about, or what they might be like, you know, passionate to stand up against, or start. So you can either find things out or confirm things with some students. And I think you could really, one, use this knowledge for your benefit as a youth pastor or youth leader to see like, oh, where your students at, and two, to also just kind of like have them broaden their horizons, and maybe they don't know about some of these things that are going on in the world that they can find out through your teaching of like, you know, what's going on, if some of the injustices going on in the world, and maybe it'll spark a passion inside them to do something about that. So I love this application. I think it's going to be great. I think students will really learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is a really relevant, it's not only like a relevant time to be teaching this, but it's a really relevant application, because most of the time students feel a little bit too small or too overwhelmed to make a difference in anything like majorly broken in the world. I mean, I feel too small to make a difference. So I know that they're definitely questioning whether or not they have something that they can practically give. But asking a question like this, like if you could go back in time and you could ensure that one of these things is taken care of, which one? And it will help you see like what breaks their heart, and uncovering that compassion that's inside of them will help them to begin to learn how to be an advocate for that brokenness in the world, because they probably aren't going to be actively advocating against or for any of these things, but they can try following where their heart is already starting to break and where they're already starting to feel compassion. And your job as a leader, you can totally kind of listen and see like, oh wow, they're really really caring about the earth, or they really want addictions to be, you know, eradicated. Whatever it is, you can start to listen and begin to take notes and help them find their way as they're learning to do justice on their own.
Yeah, that's why I love this a lot. I think you'll learn a lot from your students to do that. So that's really cool. As much as we can learn from our students, the better, I think, in my opinion. So, and then I just want to finish off this week with this object lesson right there at the very end. I won't say much about it just now, but just know that it's a jigsaw puzzle that you can start putting together, and it'll culminate in week 4. So I won't talk about it in the rest of the weeks, but I just want to highlight that in week 1, and it is in every single week, but I really want to make mention of it again in week 4. So we'll come back to that in week 4. But
Perfect. All
that's
right,
week
so
1. And
that's week
then,
1.
yeah, so we have small group questions for you guys here. We've got the hybrid teaching. So if you guys want to do some like breakout and discussions, you can do that as well, depending on your size and kind of your format of how you teach. So that's that. And that is that for week 1. And then you're into week 2. Cool. So for week 2, our big idea is Jesus can rebuild what has been destroyed. So I want to open up and talk about this first question, actually. So this is a really fun question, is what is your favorite movie about time travel? I think it's just a really cool open-ended question. When I teach youth, I love having like open-ended questions like this. One, it kind of sets them in the mind frame of kind of the lesson that we're teaching, and 2, just gets them talking and engaged and interacting and that sort of thing. So yeah, this is just a great question for you to ask your students. What's your favorite movie about time travel? And you can just let them kind of figure out. So who knows what you'll come up with, who knows what you'll hear. But yeah, just let them respond and answer that. So that's that.
This video clip, by the way, is super tense.
Yeah, it is. It is.
The Doctor Strange video.
Yeah.
It will make you want to watch the whole movie. So, as you're preparing for this, just schedule some time for movie watching.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good movie. I like Doctor Strange a lot. So it's a good one. That's for sure. I do want to talk about this rebuild race activity here. This, again, is a really cool and very creative activity to have our students. Essentially, it's like you would take a giant Jenga, and you would either use paint or masking tape to either make a distinct pattern, or even like a word like rebuild. So like kind of talking about like this whole week was talking about rebuild. So you can use that and put that on your Jenga tower. And then what you're gonna do, you'll knock it down after it's all put together. You'll knock it down and you'll have your students either like have a few of them or have all of them to try to rebuild this tower and put it back together to make it the same pattern that you had it to begin with, or just to have the word rebuild put together again. So, and you'll see why that connects in a little bit. And I think it's a great just allusion to what's going to come in our Bible section. So yeah, that's a fun activity. And let's see. Yeah, so we can go to the Bible section now. And let's see. So here's the future timeline again. So it's a little bit ahead of time this time. So you can kind of point out, but this one we're going from John. And in this one, we're talking where Jesus is talking about that he's the temple. Oh, this one, yeah, this one is, okay, so I did want to mention this as well. This is kind of interesting. So the first week we had kind of, Jesus reading his mission and that sort of thing. But these next 3 weeks, Jesus gets a little spicy in the next 3 weeks. This one is when he's flipping the tables, he's cracking the whip, he's driving out the people that are selling things in the temple. And yeah, so and then the next couple of weeks he'll get a little interesting too, calling out some people. But in this one, he's doing that specifically, and he's talking about how like he was upset at the people selling things in his temple, but more so the fact that they were taking advantage of the people being in the temple. And so he was just like, I don't want this to be happening here. And I believe it's in the scripture as well, where he talks about like, he's going to rebuild the temple, it'll be destroyed in the rebuild. And again, we have the quote from Jeremiah over here as well, from the Old Testament, of like how that relates and kind of connects the two, because the Jeremiah passage is also about building the temple and all that sort of thing, and how the people of Israel kind of didn't understand what it meant. And when Jesus came, he kind of took it a different spin. And so it's quite fascinating the way we've kind of paired these two together. But any thoughts on the scriptures for this week, Brooklyn?
Just dig in. They're really incredibly linked, and you'll love, I don't know, just learning it as a leader, not only sharing it. So I would encourage you to kind of dig in on your own, and then just follow. We have all the instructions here for you to read it and the points already, but you might even see some connections that we missed. So yeah, just dive in, because I think when Jesus said all of these things, like you can see so much of that evidence in the words of the prophet. So It's really fun to uncover it and just kind of be an explorer, wonder, be curious about it. You'll see an invitation from Jesus in every single scripture passage, but it's kind of cool to see that coming from the past as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so
even in the Psalms,
Yeah, and then you have one, just a little one from the Psalms as well too. So yeah, that's cool. And then I want to talk about the next section. I think it's called the rebuilding board. So I think that's a little bit further down. Yeah, right here, the rebuilding board. And so this one's really cool. It's also a little bit more creative as well. So like after your teach, this would be kind of towards the end of your lesson as almost like a response to what you've taught. And so this one, we're asking you to kind of put together a large cork board, get some note cards, get some push pins and some construction paper. And you'll have 4 different sections, like 4 different categories. You'll say my life, my relationships, my community, and the world. And your students will actually get to respond and to see, okay, what are things that are broken in my life that need to be fixed in each of these sections, or what are some of the things that are just acknowledging some of the things that they need to work on in their lives for each of these sections and in the world and that sort of thing. And so this is a really cool, like, hands-on reflection to have students think about things in their lives. And again, it connects to the big idea of like Jesus can rebuild what is destroyed. So if things are not the greatest in their life, which we all have stuff that we would love to have fixed on and that sort of thing. So this is just kind of an invitation for them to allow Jesus to work in their lives to rebuild their lives. So that's kind of what that one's all about. Again, we give you guys small groups, hybrid, middle school questions, high school questions as well. And
There's a lot of stuff in here, so make sure you take a look. Even if you're not particularly looking for special needs hacks or middle school hacks, take a look at them anyway, because sometimes those hacks are very transferable and really fun to do. So don't forget to take a look at those no matter what you're doing, because there's always some really good stuff in there too.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to get to week 3 here. All right, here we are.
There it is, week 3. So the week 3, the big idea is Jesus calls us to do justice. So for this one, I'm actually going to talk about the video clip over here, because we have a video clip called from Back to the Future. So I was like, how can we call the series Back to the Future if we don't even use a clip about from the movie Back to the Future? So this clip is, I think, when Doc and Marty, right? Yeah, Doc and Marty, they're like trying to figure out the Mandalorian, or the DeLorean. I got Star Wars in here.
It's been a year.
The DeLorean, and so like they're talking about that, and he's like, "You made a time machine out of a car," and all this sort of thing. So yeah, we got the clip there set up for you. And I think actually, like, I tested this morning that if you click on this link here that we give you, it already starts at 4:43 timestamp. So you don't even have to worry about like trying to figure out, trying to time it right and that sort of thing. So you click it, and it opens up. And again, of course, it just connects to the whole series in general about talking about Back to the Future, time machines, all that good stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of one things I wanted to open up with. We've got some stories again. So I mentioned about these stories. So these are just moments in your life where we've just say something about, like, talk about a time when you were surprisingly bad at something. Like, for example, we connect this to the DeLorean, how I think we talk about how everyone was hyping up this car, and then when it actually came out, it wasn't all that great as it was supposed to be. And so like the same thing that maybe you try to be something really good at that you found out you weren't really good at, so use that story. That's kind of the format that we use our stories. So we put that in there as like a placeholder for you to kind of think about, okay, what are times in my life that I've experienced something like this that I can share to my students? And I just think stories are a great way for you to connect with your students to see yourself, and to open yourself up as who you are. So
what's something that you're surprisingly bad at, David?
Oh gosh, something I'm surprisingly bad at. I don't know. I'm not very good at drawing, even though I try to be good at drawing, I guess sometimes. I don't know. Yeah. Drawing is like something
I'm real bad at cooking any type of protein. Like, I just cannot cook food that is of animal nature, just not able. Yeah. My friend just went windsurfing for the first time, and this is maybe a more surprising story, but he's a really good surfer, and he has surfed his whole life. Mm-hmm. He has great balance. He's great, and he's always wanted to windsurf. So he went out. He came back so dejected. He was like, did not want to talk to us. He was like, I'm the worst. And it was kind of funny, but I think it's always fun to share those kinds of stories, just so that you can, kind of level the playing field a little bit and let everybody know that, sometimes our reality doesn't always meet expectations, and there's a lot that we can work on. Like, maybe the most impressive things in life aren't really so impressive after all. So this story section is really fun, and I hope you have fun doing this with your students.
Definitely. Just have fun with the stories. There's another story over here that you guys can use if you want to. But yeah, let's talk about the Bible section a little bit. So
Okay.
in this one, Jesus is speaking against the Pharisees. Oh, again, there's the object lesson that pops up again every single week. Like we have it there with your arrow. Feel free to do whatever you want with that, or have design that however you would like. But this one, we're talking from Luke, and this one is where Jesus invites the religious leaders to brunch. You know, we have here a little commentary that it actually means like a morning or a noontime meal. So, you know, Jesus having brunch with the religious leaders. So yeah, so this one, and he's actually like, this one, Jesus gets a little spicy. Like he's not afraid to like call them out on what they're doing. Like he says something, like I think the religious leaders tell him like, Jesus, why aren't you like washing your hands or washing the bowl out before you eat or something like that? And Jesus is like, look, it's not necessarily these ceremonial actions that matter. It's more about your heart behind it and trying to
Yeah.
figure out like why you're doing the things that you're doing. And it kind of leads a little bit into, I believe, the next week. But yeah, this one, he like calls them up straight up about like, you know, why are you doing these things? Why are you treating these people like you are? And so, yeah, that's a pretty interesting one as well. And then we talk, let me see, we could go down to the Old Testament. Yeah, we go from Amos. And again, very similar to like how Jesus was calling out the religious leaders, Amos was calling out the people of Israel on like how they weren't doing what God was telling them to do. Like he's like, look, you gotta get your act straight. Like you're doing these things, and this is not what God wants us to do. And so, yeah, so it's a really interesting connection between Jesus and Amos. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, and I just thought of this right now, but oftentimes we categorize the person of Jesus as prophet, priest, and king, and that's kind of how we understand Jesus a lot of times. In this sermon, in this whole series, we're definitely looking at the prophet version of Jesus, like how Jesus acted as a prophet. So yeah, that's a really cool perspective that sometimes students may not really know or understand or kind of hear about Jesus being a prophet. They know about Jesus being the king of resurrection. They know about Jesus being the priest, about how he heals and is with the sick, but oftentimes we don't usually talk about Jesus as a prophet. So I think this is a really cool series of how we're tying justice and prophecy into that, about how Jesus did that. So that's a cool realization I just had talking about that. So it's really neat. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I think this is all really good stuff for students to think about because you know, the world that we live in is always evolving, but the story of Jesus is kind of like in a place in time, and looking at it from our perspective is always going to be different than the person who looked at it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So even just David talking right now about this and how like thinking of Jesus as a prophet, how that changes things, how it changes our perspective and what he said. I mean, the story of Jesus is the most compelling story that ever existed. But we may not get like all the details perfectly because of where we are in this time and in this history. So just be open to the wonderings of your students and their
Mm-hmm.
questions, because they may be used to seeing Jesus in one particular way, but the past, the present, and the future could maybe give them a different perspective. So this is all really, really cool opportunity for them to have a conversation.
Definitely. And then I want to focus on this one right here, the reflection of, am I doing injustice? And so just like how similar, like how Jesus was calling out the religious, we're not going to call out your students and be like, you guys need to do this, this, and this, but like we want them to explore how they maybe contribute to some injustices, or how are they neglecting the work of justice right now. So this is probably would be a pretty difficult conversation, I think, with them. Just about like asking them these hard questions, like when have they taken advantage of someone? When have they participated in something that they hurt someone else? When have they been silent when they should have spoken up about something? So this will be definitely a challenging reflection for students, but I think we've shaped it in a way to where it will be meaningful and reflective for them. And so as we'll scroll down in a little bit here, about the handout. So this will be an actual handout activity. So that will provide you guys with the handouts, and you just provide yourselves with the pens, and you place those with students in their chairs, and they'll get to fill out the handouts themselves. So it's a little bit more personalized. So you're not necessarily like asking them to share aloud, like when they've experienced some of these steps or participate in some of these things, but it's more introspective and reflective.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get there.
Oh, it's not good. Yeah, we have to scroll through all the other stuff, and but yeah, so we have the passage here up on the top that says like the let justice roll like a everlasting river, and then a little space here for them to write the reflection and do their response there. So it's not necessarily like a public thing that they're like sharing with everyone, but it's more very introspective and personal reflection, but yet still challenging at the same time to like make them really think about like, okay, where can I really do the work of justice in my life, or where I have not done the work of justice in my life. So Really cool way to do that and really cool way to put that. Any other thoughts on week 3, Brooklyn, or are you good?
I think that's it. I'm excited for everyone to dive into this. It's gonna be great.
Me too, me too. All right, so here we go. Week 4. This is our last week. And this big idea is Jesus calls us to remember. And so this one, I also want to point out the question at the very beginning. This is just, I think this will be a really cool question to ask your students. It'll really also, again, talking about learning from your students. This question is, what moment from your past would you want to relive? And so I think this will definitely be given insight to your students, what they value from their past. Again, also connects to the theme that we've been going to, the Back to the Future, going back into the Old Testament, connecting to Jesus, and then living in the present. And so this is definitely looking back for your students in their lives and kind of reflecting on their lives and just kind of asking them what they would like to relive. So there's that. A really cool clip from Harry Potter if you're into Harry Potter, so you can use that. It's all about traveling time as well. But again, I want to also make a mention, because I know some people may not be super pumped about using Harry Potter. You don't have to use it. You don't have to use this if you don't want to. If you feel uncomfortable showing this kind of movie to your students, because you might think parents might get on you for doing that, you don't have to use it. That's kind of one of the beauties about Grow. And so if you're not familiar with Grow, we make our lessons and our sermons completely adaptable and customizable, so you can choose and pick what you want and what you need for your group, and you know your students the best, and you know your ministry and your context the best. So feel free to kind of adapt this to you. So if you find a better clip that you want to use that's a little more appropriate for your context, use that as well, or maybe one from the other weeks as well that could work as well. So yeah, wanted to make a mention of that.
Absolutely.
Yes, and then let's go into the Bible section. There's some stories again as well. Again, will be the last week for your timeline. But yeah, this one we're going from the book of Matthew. And this one's similar to the one before, but a little nuanced in the sense that this is the one about how people are being overly boastful or overly prideful about, worshiping and that sort of thing. And so they're kind of focusing on their external actions and seeing about how they can make it a big show and kind of see how grandiose they're praying or they're fasting, that sort of thing. And Jesus is like, hey, look, this is not really what this is supposed to be. Like, it's supposed to be this internal thing where it's a connection to God and to build a relationship with God. And Jesus is really calling out the people, because that sometimes can bleed through into with justice and that sort of thing about, like, people overly showing what they're doing and not really doing it for the heart of the matter of what they're actually passionate about, if that makes sense. So we'll do a little bit from Matthew, and then we'll connect it to the prophet Isaiah. Very much similar to what Jesus was saying. Is like, hey, look, why are you doing all these things for show? You really got to look at your heart while you're doing these things. And that's the reason why we call this the big idea Jesus wants us to remember, is because the mission of Jesus was to, set the captives free, to speak up for those who are oppressed, and stand up for those who can't stand up or don't have a voice, and take care of people. That's really at the heart of the matter of what Jesus wants us. Our mission is not to be overly boastful or prideful or showing what we do, but really connect with Jesus and loving God and loving other people. That's what we're all about. Any thoughts on these Bible passages, Brooklyn?
They just happen to be two of my, they're the most, cherished passages of scripture when it comes to just being in this world. And they're not necessarily the most inspiring and encouraging, because they can tend to make you feel like, I have a lot of work to do, like I'm ignoring a lot. It's not always like our first nature to go out and, loosen the chains of injustice and set oppressed people free. And we might even be a little bit numb hearing of all of the things that need to be done in the world. But these two passages of scripture really take you back and help you remember why. Why do we do what we do as followers of Jesus? Because Jesus came here to do these things. And if he was about it, then we should be about it. And so the practical application part of this message for this week is really important, because it's good when you get to that spot where you can see, okay, he was about it, so I want to be about it, but how do I be about it? How do I be about it today in 2021 with all of these things going on? And so hopefully that's what you'll be able to do throughout this whole experience with your students.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's good. That's a good word for sure. And so like as Brooklyn was saying, when we take it into the present, so we obviously talk about remember the mission a little bit. We kind of give you some time to like teach and preach for your students. And then this is the object lesson that completes the one that I was talking about from week 1. Justice takes all of us. And so this one, so as you were going through this series, hopefully you had a puzzle that you had been putting together enough to where it's like students can kind of put it together during the weeks in each week. But there's one little thing that I didn't mention at first, I'll mention now, that you want to take out like the middle piece of the puzzle and you keep that very safe. And then as you are teaching, hopefully by this time, if your puzzle hasn't been completed at this point, finish it before either the night or just have a few pieces left where you can put it together real quick before you're teaching. And then as you are putting the last piece together, you kind of talk through this section about how Jesus completes our mission and how Jesus is the one that completes our puzzle and how Jesus is the one who's equipping us to do the work of justice in our lives. And so that's kind of how that object lesson kind of like all ties together. It's a really cool visual. I know I've talked about this before in other deep dives, but I think we do a really cool job of making a thread through each of the 4 weeks. And so hopefully that engages your students to kind of keep coming back every single week to see what more is going to come next. And so like if you do one week and to the second the other week and you build on top of that and you connect it through, our hope and our goal is to hopefully keep it connected, not only in like learning about the material, but just being present in the time that you guys are doing youth group and that sort of thing. So yeah, so there's that.
I just want to like circle back to something David said in case you missed it. You take that middle piece and keep it real safe. You know, as I was thinking of this idea when we were writing this, I was thinking, what can we do every single week? And that, you know, what kind of like picture can we create where it's missing something? And I was like, oh yeah, a puzzle. And then I immediately thought I would be that person who hides that piece and then cannot find it. So make sure you put it somewhere, maybe put a little tracker on it, you know, tell a friend like where you put it, because you know, it would be a fun laugh if you don't have it, I guess, but you're gonna want to make sure you have that for the final moment, because
you get to week 4 and you're like, oh my goodness, where did I put it?
I can see you guys like making your own puzzle piece out of crude items that you found and your artistic skills.
Like drawing it in there.
It's gonna happen. I guarantee it's gonna happen, but it's probably gonna be me first, so no worries. But yeah, like this is a cool activity to do every week, even if you were just, maybe you're not doing the series this month because maybe you're taking a hiatus this summer and you're not teaching anything. This would be a really cool thing to do. Kids are coming to church and you've got some time with them before the service starts, have a puzzle out. And then, you know, maybe like as the time goes on, you know, you're building a relationship with kids, and when you get to that final piece, you can kind of pull it out and share a little moment with them, even when they weren't expecting it. So this is a really fun thing that you can do together.
Yeah, that's
good. All right.
And
what else is that?
Yeah, the last one I want to point out is this reflection piece that I will remember. So this one's just another one of those like handouts that we'll point out here in a little bit, but this just is a good summary of what we are called to remember, and students will get a time, will be encouraged to write down something they want to remember from the series, and so that way they can just take home and they can keep it and put it somewhere to where they'll remember, okay, how am I going to be able to live into Jesus' mission, live into justice in my work. And so, yeah, there's the handout right there. It says, I will remember, with a little space to write it on. And yeah, so there's that. And that's the series. That's our series. And that's kind of what we have for you guys.
Can't wait to see it in the wild. It feels like a million years ago when this was created. So I just can't wait to see it now and out there with all of you. Very cool. Do you want to talk about the summer event now?
Yeah, let's do it. The summer event. So yeah, it is called the Golden Glow Awards. And so yeah, it's going to be really cool. I was just telling Brooklyn that this event is not necessarily like, it's not like your big color war or like a big, I mean, it's a big event, but it's not like your typical summer kickoff event. Like you could totally go all out for this and totally make it big, but it's just something very different that I've never usually done in my ministry, but I think it would be super cool to do something like this. And this is just an event that celebrates your students. And so I think this is a really cool event to really just get to speak into your students, because sometimes, you know, we teach our students and we live with them, and or we don't live with your students. Hope you don't live with your students, but like you do life with your students. You do life with your students, and you kind of figure out what they're about. But this is where a time where you get to really speak into it and speak it over them, and just kind of get to really do some identity forming with them. So we'll unpack that as we go here. But yeah, so as for any event, do what?
It's just a total brag fest. You're going to be bragging and bragging and bragging about the students and families in your church. So
it is. And so as we do for every event, we give you guys everything you need for this event. We give you guys planning stuff, marketing stuff, like things, how to put things together, how to plan things, like even like dress codes. Like if you want, you can like make this a super formal thing. You can make it thrift store fashion. You can make it celebrity lookalikes, costumes, pajamas, whatever you want. Brooklyn, I know you've done like some proms as well, like kind of like different kinds of stuff like that. So really you can kind of shape this. The only thing I would say that if you do a dress code, make sure you promote the heck out of it, just because like you don't want someone to show up and just kind of be out of place, that sort of thing. That's kind of tough for a student, but just really make sure you promote that. But yeah, any thoughts on the dress code? You got really excited.
I would just say if you do, yeah, of course, if you do go with the dress code, do promote it a lot. But just keep in mind, no matter how much you promote, someone's not going to get it and somebody's not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. So just remember, there's going to be a few that don't want to do it, and just make it super, super cool. Like you can, if you want to do this, we're going to do this. But if you don't want to, that's okay too. We want you to come. And then have some stuff on hand for the kid that showed up for the first time that's not connected, not in any of your communication circles, because they're gonna show up and just feel a little weird. So if you've got some glasses that can like tie them into the theme. I know when we did like the pirate prom, we just had like a bunch of like hand hooks. So you don't really have to have a complete costume for every new student or student who didn't get the memo, but maybe something like a tattooed sticker or some sort of boa that they could wrap around their neck, or some sort of celebrity, I don't know, thing. So yeah, and thrift store fashion is great because you can just go on those days where you can get a whole bag of something for, $20. Just throw every size in there, a bunch of stuff, and then throw it out. Have it like handy when people are coming if you're going to do this. So yeah, I love this kind of stuff. If you want to ask questions or brainstorm, I'm always about it.
Yeah, go for it. Reach out to Brooklyn. Ask her.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So here we go. We got some decoration stuff that you can do. Here, those are the awards. Brooklyn, if you go just like a little bit up real fast, those are the awards that you can kind of give to your students. And for the awards, it's a little interesting. You can kind of either do like give an award for every single one of your student, depending on how many students you have. But this is, and I think this is really cool. This can make this event really special, that if you have a pretty good sized group, but you want to recognize your seniors in a special way, like your graduating high school seniors, this will be a cool thing where you can maybe do an award for each one of your seniors and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a really cool way for you to do the awards. We give you guys some suggestions on what sort of awards to give. So like hugs, best hugs, always returns texts, always smiles, all that sort of thing. Most welcoming, always makes us laugh. So you can do those kinds of awards, but feel free to come up with whatever you want to do or whatever you want to kind of come up with. And you can, all these different kind of trophies that we have here to pick from. You can do certificates if you want to do certificates. You can do that. Plaques, ribbons, kind of whatever you want to do. Just a time to honor your students.
I want to give an idea here because like this is a jam. I love trophies. I love when everyone gets something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I started going to little like vintage costume shops or antique stores and just look for like little knickknacks and figurines, just weird stuff. Get it and spray it all gold. Just get it, go to Lowe's, get a can of spray paint, and just, even if it's like a yard decoration or a yard ornament. Like I remember having a little poodle it's like stone, sat in front of someone's yard. It even had like a bobblehead. Just spray that thing gold. It is the coolest thing ever. People love it. You could have a harmonica, you could have a little action figure. As long as it's gold, it's just amazing. If you wanted to do some sort of little plaque on that item, you could go to a trophy store and get the little placard a lot cheaper than you get the whole trophy. So if you wanted to go ahead and have a bunch of stuff custom engraved, you'll save a lot of money just getting those and using the adhesive backing to add it to whatever random item you found. So if you need to save some money, I would just start scouring the thrift stores and collecting the most random things. Another thing you can do is just tell the people in your church, hey, I'm doing this. Do you have anything laying around that you really don't want that's just like kind of decorative? It could be a wreath, it could be anything, as long as it's not a living animal, which we have done before, but most parents aren't super happy about that. So yeah, just go non-living, decorative, items that you find laying around. Spray it with some gold spray paint and you're set.
Yes, 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 yes. That's always a great hack. A great hack. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so there's some fun stuff that you can do just real fast before you keep going. Go up real quick, Brooklyn.
Oh, up, up, up. Okay.
Up, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Right here, yeah. So some fun. So if you want to do just some fun stuff besides just doing the celebration, so obviously you can have like some dinner, and we give you guys some food options there for whatever you need to do, budget wise or depending on your ministry. And then we give you guys some like fun things you can do besides just dinner and the celebration. But you guys can have like a red carpet opportunity, photo booth, carnival style games, lawn games, icebreakers, bounce houses. If you guys have our Grow Games app, you can download that and find some cool games to do that with that there. But we do have the note here that whatever you decide to do, try to combine it with a little bit of a fancy and a little bit of fun. So fancy and fun. So keep that in mind as you're coming up with games for this event. And I think that just about wraps up this event. I don't think there's much more to talk about. There's Alex who
did a shopping list. I think there was one thing I wanted to show them. Oh yeah, this. I know that it might be something monotonous to see the planning timeline in the events. And I admit, while I'm editing these, I'm like, okay, planning timeline, 3 months, 2 months, 6 weeks. Don't skip this part, because the more time you spend planning ahead, the more successful your event is going to be. And there's really not a better time to create a successful, connecting kind of event for students. They have missed so much this year. My kids are, one's going into high school, one's going into middle school this year. And it has been a really tough year where they have missed class parties. They're not allowed to have food at school. They have missed, a lot of people have missed school in general, any type of social celebration, proms, dances, end of year parties. They're just non-existent, or if they are, they're really weird. So take the time to plan and to really be thinking about how all of this can create a space where kids and families really feel loved and cared about. You're gonna kill it. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see this out here. Alex, I'm sure, is really pumped too. So
yes,
yeah,
if we were on Facebook Live, maybe he would have popped up in the comments and been like, hey, here's my event, possibly. But yeah, so like Brooklyn was saying, we give you timeline, responsibilities for your volunteers. The shopping list was up there as well. And so like we give you guys graphics. I mean, we give you guys a lot of things. Just follow the instructions and you guys will be good to go with this event. And like I say, usually at the end of all of our deep dives, we'd love for you guys to show us like when you guys are doing these events or when you're doing these series. Even if you're not doing these for the month of June, if you're doing like a different series or a different event, still tag us, post them on our Facebook group, on the Stuff You Can Use Facebook students group. We'd love to see you guys like interact with our stuff and put it in person, even sharing ideas, collaborating with each other on how to do this event. And so we'd love to see that happen. And yeah, Brooklyn, anything else you want to say or talk about?
I mean, volume 4 is like happening right now. Volume 5 is out the door. We're working on volume 6. There's so many crazy things happening. But in the middle of all that, you might have some questions. So if there's anything that you need, questions, comments, concerns, real just wonderings that you have, go ahead and just tag us. We will reply. We'll be there for you. Yeah, and we'll be back in the month of July. I think Elle will be back. She's in Hawaii right now. Not feeling bad for her at all. No, I'm so excited that she gets to be there, and she will be back here with you in July. So until then, make sure you go check out growcurriculum.com, the new website. It's beautiful. I think you're gonna really like the new site navigation. The dev team has been crushing it, and it's just amazing. So yeah, so here we are. Let's see this stuff in the wild. Send all your stuff our way. We want to see it. We want everyone else to have the help they need too. And if you need anything, please reach out. We're here. This is what we do.
Yes, we're here to help you guys out. You guys are doing great. And we'll see you guys next month.
Yeah, bye everybody.
See you guys.